everybody. How are you this evening? Well, I just got that right? So 现在是美国早上8:03，刚刚有点，因为通常是8点开始 Usually we start at 8 o'clock in the morning here on the East Coast, but I was having problem adjusting the camera. So I just got a line, and you can see that today is the horizontal view. So two things. First, I wouldn't know where to look. I know the camera's there again, but I'm always like, just looking over here. So know that I am talking to you. And 今天的荧幕是这样子，宽的、横的，所以你们知道今天等一下会有特别来宾。So we have a special guest later, and 然后还有另外一件事情就是我都眼睛都会不知道飘到哪里去 ，because usually it's the vertical view, right? 因为通常都是 portrait view. Okay, 好 ，without further ado, lately I say these words a lot, these terms a lot. Okay, 好，如果有这本的人拿出来 ，so if you have this book, take it out, get ready, and we're going to talk about falcon today. And in this book, we have the peregrine falcon. So in this coloring page, it's the peregrine falcon, but we'll talk about different things about like the morph and so you can color it really any way you want. 等一下我们会讲到不同的morph， 哈哈，我不知道中文怎么讲，但是就是不同的形态。这边好像弄到东西，这边，OK, doesn't matter. It's just look.And 我们会讲到不同的 morph， 所以通常同一种的鸟类，可能有一些不同的种类的鸟会有不同的 morph。morph 就是外表的看到的样子。So it can have different kind of feather plumage on the front, but it's still the same species of birds. 所以通常99%我们看到什么鸟长什么样子，大概就是这个颜色。但是有些时候有不同的鸟会有同一种鸟会有不同的颜色，那就是不同的 morph 就是 morph morph。然后等一下一些其他字我们会讲到很多其他字，然后我们都会写下来。So I know there are different new people watching today, so I'll introduce myself a little bit. My name is Miss Delphine. Well, my name is Delphine, but kids call me Miss Delphine. And I am Taiwanese.And I live in the States for about 20 years now, almost 20 years, I think 18 and a half, something. And so the reason why I want to teach this class, 这个我想要教这堂课最主要的原因呢，就是因为我希望更多So doing that again, it's reconnecting again. 今天的网络不太稳定，因为我们前几天有大风雨，大暴风 So there's a hurricane last week.And so many things got blown down. 然后很多家都停电，长岛大概现在好像95%的电都回来了，但是我们上个礼拜有整整3天又多一点没有电。So I had to cancel a lot of classes, and I still have 2 students who they don't have their power back yet. Yeah, 所以在台湾大小朋友，请你们一定要好好珍惜台湾。Can you imagine you didn't have power for 3 weeks? So anyways, so later we'll have our special guest, Paul, and then I will have him introduce himself to you. And I don't know if he's watching already, but we'll invite him up. And 还有另外一件事情就是，如果你们在看这个影片，然后如果你们喜欢的话，也可以按这个 share button. So you can press the share button and share it on your page, so more people can watch it. 然后像我刚刚讲的，我之前在台湾的时候都没有学这些台湾看得到的一些鸟类啦、动物啦，英文怎么说？所以虽然我的英文还不错，我有参加英语演讲比赛 ，right? So my English was pretty good.Growing up because my mom's an English teacher, so she's been teaching me since I was little, and we watch a lot of Disney cartoons. 很多爸爸妈妈最近有问我说英文是怎么学的，然后当然就是我说我有先偷跑，我妈妈是英文老师，然后还有另外一个就是 我们看很多很多的 Disney 的卡通，然后卡通里面他们的用字都比较简单一点 ，right？ 然后剧情也比较简单，所以你可以follow along and you can hear every word pronunciation very very clearly. 所以我建议大家可以多多看迪士尼卡通。All right, so we're going to talk about the Peregrine Falcon first. So this is the Peregrine Falcon. Peregrine Falcon 跟等一下我们要讲到的 Gyrfalcon 呢，这个 Peregrine Falcon especially 是在欧美亚这些甚至非洲的一些地方都可以看到的，所以这个全部世界上都有的动物，我们叫什么？Do you remember? So we talked about this before. And Phoebe, if you're watching, I know you know this word. 所以我知道，如果 Phoebe 在看的话，她一定知道这个字是什么字。这个全世界各个地方都有的动物叫这个字。但是我们先讲特有种好了，因为我最近我在写的一本书是有关台湾特有种的。那特有种的英文是 endemic，OK，so 我写下来，然后你们可以看一下，因为这个字很重要，我觉得，因为台湾像岛国这种地方才会有 endemic 的这个 species，so endemic 是特有种 endemic。我现在学会了用这个后面放一张白纸，这么简单的 solution 我之前都没有想到 endemic。所以这个是特有种的意思。那台湾有很多很多的特有种，对不对？像台湾蓝雀，我知道这好像是I think that's our national bird now, the Formosan or Taiwan blue magpie, 台湾蓝雀。So endemic 这个字是特有种的意思。有没有觉得这个字很熟悉？ Does this word sound familiar to you? Because lately we have been talking about this other word, the opposite of endemic a lot. 这个特有种的相反呢，其实这个为什么要用透明的写？因为我写出来的在你们荧幕上看到是会颠倒的，所以一开始的时候我们都不知道要怎么办让大家看到字，所以后来才想到说用透明的板子写，然后后面垫一张白纸，对不对？All right, yes, very good, Phoebe. I knew you'd come through. So the opposite of endemic is pandemic. Pandemic 就是全世界各地都有的。那现在这个字很流行，因为是新冠病毒、武汉病毒 pandemic 的关系，所以就是全世界的病是 pandemic。但是其实这个字只是全世界都有的意思。Okay, pandemic.And the word pandemic, so now they use it usually 29种 Jerome okay, so Jerome said that there are 29 endemic bird species, I want to say, in Taiwan, and so that's the endemic species. So the pandemic is the opposite of endemic. That means you can see it everywhere else in the world. So 这个就是不是特有种，这个的相反是世界共通的。所以那现在 pandemic 这个字通常就是用来形容疾病，所以有另外一种字，另外一个也是我觉得也是很多人知道这个字，但是不知道可以用来形容这个生物的分布。这个字呢就是 cosmopolitan。So cosmopolitan, if you are my age, so I want to say 30s to 40s, you grew up, you were in college, and no, 30 to 50, I want to say. So you grew up watching Sex and the City, right? 所以欲望城市So Sex and the City 的里面有一个他们最喜欢的调酒叫做 Cosmopolitan, right? 所以 Cosmopolitan 其实是后来在流行界 So in a fashion sense, Cosmopolitan means you're very suave, right? 就是在如果是流行上来讲的话，是比较流行的人，然后到哪里 So cosmopolitan actually means that you're comfortable everywhere you go. So this is 就是比较摩登时尚的人，但是其实在自然界里面呢 ，cosmopolitan 这个字是到处都有的的种类。我的最大的困扰就是我很不会目测，所以呢，我一开始字写得很大，因为想让大家看嘛，然后后来字就写不下，所以我要重写一次，因为 cosmopolitan 这个字比较长 ，cosmopolitan。然后有一种感觉像大都会的这种感觉 ，cosmopolitan. So cosmopolitan is the opposite word of endemic, cosmopolitan, and it's also a name of a drink. And of course, if you're underage, do not drink. And so that is cosmopolitan. But we have a lot of adult viewers and audience as well. So here's the word, cosmopolitan. That's the opposite of endemic. Okay, so like we said, why do we talk so many about these two words? Is because the falcon is a cosmopolitan species. That means you can see them in pretty much every continent in the world. So cosmopolitan. All right. 今天要讲很多字，然后呢，另外一个我们要讲到 So when I teach this class, when I teach about falcon, 就是我们在讲这一页的时候，通常我会问小朋友 What is the fastest animal in the world? What is the fastest animal in the world? So now, of course, you know we're talking about falcon, so you will say falcon, right? 但是很多的时候呢，小朋友都会说，哦，是猎豹 right? So a lot of times people will say it's cheetah, but although they are very fast on land, 所以因为他们虽然是非常，他们跑的爆发力很快 right? So they're really fast. They can run really fast in a short distance. So they can run about 75 miles per hour. 这边呢，我们还有数学题目 So we have math homework here as well. All right. So we know that so in the States we use miles and we use different kind of units like pounds, miles, and what other things that we use. That's a little bit silly. But I want to tell you, so 1 mile equals 1.6 kilometers. Okay? 1英里等于大概 1.6, 其实是 1.609 什么的，但是就是算 1.6 就好了 Okay? 1 mile equals 1.6 kilometers. 所以1英里等于 1.6 公里。好，那小朋友算一算。So when I say, 所以我如果说 cheetah can run up to 75 miles per hour, 那我们要讲的时候呢，会怎么说？用中文的话，我们就是用在台湾的单位，对不对？ So we have to use these units that can be understood in Taiwan, and what would that be? So can you count or can you calculate actually how many kilometers there are in 70 miles? So if I say cheetahs run 70 miles per hour, and you will, when you were talking about this with your Taiwanese friends, they don't understand miles, 算算看这个公里的话里面有几公里 okay? And so falcons can they don't necessarily fly fast, but what they do that's really fast is that high dive. So this is how they catch their prey. 这个 falcon 呢，在要抓它的猎物的时候，他们不是说飞很快去抓这个猎物，因为他们通常的食物是也是一样，天空里面飞的鸟，天空 no 不是用里面中天 anyway 飞的鸟。Okay, 在空中 there you go, 空中飞的鸟 So the birds, other smaller birds fly in the sky, and once they lock down, so they can fly up to like really, really high at like about like 1,000 feet up. 所以很好 Angela 有说120公里，所以 so they are 120 kilometers in 75 miles per hour. That's actually really good to know because I drive usually on the highway. I drive about 80 miles per hour. So I should probably slow down a little bit, huh? So 这个在猎豹刚刚有有没有小朋友说 Angela 应该是，所以可能是 Andrew 算的，因为 Andrew 是我的学生。So you know that the cheetah can run up to. So Andrew, if you're watching, we'll talk about peregrine falcon as well, and we'll also talk about cheetah as well. So the cheetah run up to 120 kilometers an hour for a very short distance. 所以大概在高速公路上开很快的车子，跟猎豹跑的速度是差不多的 ，OK？ But peregrine falcon 他们在飞上去的时候，可能时间速度不是这么快 ，so the speed of them flying up is probably not that high. But once they found a prey and they 就是要俯冲的时候呢，这边有一个，因为没有办法把它画的真的就是就是他们会像把他们的翅膀缩进去，变得有点像子弹的形状，这样冲下去。他们的主要的猎捕的方式呢，是把这个猎物撞昏，然后再就是如果猎物撞昏的话，他们就在空中抓住。So what they do is they dive down really fast and they knock their prey unconscious, and so the prey pass out or faint, and then they catch them and they eat them. 这是他们，所以这个冲的时候呢 ，so this kind of dive， 这个冲的速度最快，我们这边写什么？好，所以又再来200 miles per hour. So the fastest stoop they can have is 200 miles per hour. 200 miles per hour 的话就是几公里一小时。So 你们算的时候呢，我写这个字。So that kind of dive, it's called a stoop. A stoop. OK? 这个 stoop 是就是这个游准这样咻冲下去的时候，这个动作叫做 stoop. So that's a stoop. And it can be up to 200 miles an hour. And my Take 学长有算320公里 so 330 kilometers an hour is the speed of the stoop. And that is the average. That is the average speed because they have recorded up to, I think they have, the fastest peregrine falcon that they have recorded is about 280 miles per hour. And so that creates a lot of G-forces. So do we know what G-force is? So this is another cool word that probably 我经常会说这些字因为是冷知识，所以联考不会考。And then my sister will say, 你真的每次讲这些话都透露年龄，因为现在没有联考。Okay, so 我不知道现在叫什么考，但是 chances are they are not gonna test you these words. Stoop 这个字联考一定不会出现 ，or whatever test that you're taking now, 一定不会出现。但是 so that's a cool word to learn, right? I don't even know how to say stoop in Chinese. I don't know if there's such a word as stoop in Chinese. So G-forces, we're going to talk about G-forces. 这个通常就是这样子写了right, G-force. And the G-force actually stands for 这个就比较长，所以我就不会写在上面，因为写太小你们也看不到，然后也写不下。So G-force stands for gravitational A-type equivalence. So 这是gravitational 就是gravity actually gravity 可以学gravity， 所以你可以知道说 G-force 跟 gravity 有关系。Gravity 是什么呢？之前有一部电影叫 Gravity， 对不对？ Gravity 是什么？So the word gravity actually is important. So you actually can learn this word. Gravity 是地心引力或者就是引力 ，alright？ 所以俯冲是 stoop 嘛，但是因为俯冲是很多其他的东西也可以讲俯冲，对不对？你可以说指什么很多不同的东西俯冲，但是在英文里面 stoop 是只有用在鸟类的这样子俯冲下来。 所以是一个比较特殊的字。So gravity 刚刚我们有讲到的 gravity 是这个透明的板，就是我每次要擦的时候，我要看一下在哪里擦。Gravity 就是重力或是地心引力的意思。如果你在地球上的话，那就是地心引力，因为是地球的重力把你拉下来 ，right? So that's gravity. And the G-forces 就是不同的，因为你重力的话就是有加速动力，对不对？所以这个 unit 这个我觉得我们会讲得太细，所以我们就先不要讲这个。但是有问题的人都可以在私底下问 ，OK? So this is one of the fundamental basics of physics, right? 就是物理的最重要的之一，就是重力跟地心引力。So G-forces when you 所以通常你在掉下去的时候，你的身体会觉得有就是或者是玩云霄飞车的时候 ，right? So if you are on a roller coaster, you will experience G-force, and you will experience different kind of G-forces. So 通常呢，我们讲一下，通常我们一般的人大概到5G 的时候 ，so 5G is 不是这个电信这个5G 哦。偷偷讲一下，美国人有一点就是很多阴谋理论的人很多，然后都会一直说5G、5G 是很多coronavirus 的来源，所以呢，就是很多阴谋理论人很多，但是我觉得很好的就是台湾人，我觉得没有这些这么奇怪的想法。OK，so gravity，so 通常一个人在5G is probably the most someone you and I can handle. So if you are a fighter jet pilot, 但是如果你是开战斗机的话，你知道战斗机就是这样子冲来冲去，然后这样飞来飞去，然后他们经常会又很快，然后又这样子冲着 ，right? So like they fly super fast and they make different kinds of turn, and they'll create so much G forces that the fighter pilot can extend up to 9Gs. 所以 9Gs 呢是大概一个战斗机的 pilot. So a fighter jet, a fighter pilot, they can 就是大概9G 以上不会昏倒。通常人大概在4-5G 的时候，我大概3G 就没有办法了，我觉得。So if I have like 3G forces, I will see you later. I will pass out. Human pass out. 因为通常人在昏倒的时候，就是给自己的防御的反应。So having said all this, a peregrine falcon, when they are stooping down, when they're making that stoop and flying down to the earth, and then sometimes they will turn too, they can create and withhold about 25 to 29 Gs. 所以他们可以承受25到29 G 这个很大很大的这个力。So I don't know how you can imagine this, because I think you would just die. Like if humans are doing this kind of G, they would just die. Another really 所以我们再讲一下下一个sidetrack。很多时候呢，就是在电影里面有没有看到这样子time jump 有没有或者是那种时间的 jump， 所以如果一下这么快的时候呢，通常人体是没有办法接受这个 G 的，然后就是会昏倒这样子。所以 so that's a very cool thing that peregrine falcon, and of course I think that's why it's so fascinating to study these kind of birds, because they are just so fast, and how they are not going to pass out, and how they can still be conscious doing all their things. 眼睛会掉出来 Yeah, so many different kinds of things. So when you are 他可以有说眼睛会掉出来 right? 在很多时候因为你有时候你人会昏倒的反应在fighter jet 你在飞的时候，一个很大的原因就是你的血都被你身体里面，你身一直都有在有 gravity, right? 你知道对不对？你身一直都是在被地球吸引着，所以你有这个 gravity， 大概1G 的 gravity, right? So that's normal. And if you are to like 2-3 gravities when you're on the roller coaster, you kind of feel your body is lighter, but it's because your blood is being pulled down. 因为你身体里面的血是被吸在这个，就是你感觉好像身体比较轻，但是又没有办法移动那种感觉 ，right? So that's because the blood got pulled in a different kinds of multiple sources, not sources, forces. And so 这样子的时候，所以你的心脏没有办法，你的心脏没有这么强，你的心脏已经很习惯的用这个 EG 的方式把你的血循环。Right, so your heart is used to that kind of force to circulate the blood all over your body, but now the force multiple, and now your heart won't be able to pump the blood to circulate your body. So that's the reason why people pass out, because not enough blood going to your brain. So that's why if you're experiencing 25 Gs, for like maybe 1 second, you'll pass out and that's it. But for more than that, you'll probably die. So if you are a human, don't do what Peregrine Falcon do. Don't stoop. OK? 所以如果在1秒钟的时候，我不知道人会可能就是一定会有很多器官会爆裂或什么的，但是就是25 to 29 G is too much. Alright, don't do that unless you're a Peregrine Falcon. So there's so many different kinds of things that we want to talk about, and we're going to have our special guest on. Paul, I don't know if you're there. If you are, say hello, because I haven't seen you. So if you just wave and say hello and maybe ask to be added, that would really do me a great favor. OK, 好，还有另外一个字我们可以讲一下，因为我们讲到 falcon, right? So there's a sport that's called falconry. 然后呢，这个我觉得也是很有趣的字。So falconry is it's a sport that, yep. So falcon 你知道是这个字准这个字 right? So falconry is the 用准来当狩猎的工具的一种活动，叫做 falconry。然后呢，很多人都会养这些不是很多人，是1%中的1%的人。So it's 1% of the 1% will have this kind of falconry as a sport. 所以呢，现在应该以前的时候是皇宫贵族会带这个他们的狩猎的兽鹰去打猎 ，right? So that's falconry. And 如果呢，在现在的话还是有这个 sport。然后好几年前Land Rover， 你们知道这个牌子对不对？这个英国的 SUV 的牌子叫做 Land Rover。然后他们出了一个系列的 SUV。这个在台湾应该是没有这款车子 ，OK？ 所以这个是他们的顶级的 luxury 的车款。里面呢，他们这个是很大的 SUV， 然后后面大概行李箱的地方很多，然后行李箱的地方他们有专门一个是放猎鹰的笼子的地方。Okay, so this is their definition of luxury is that you have a space in your trunk, especially for your falcon friend. And 这款车出来了之后，很多人都做了一个这个 spoof 就是也不是取笑他们，就是笑他们的这个东西，所以就是很多像新闻上面就讲说自 Range Rover 之后呢，奥迪有出在驾驶座旁边有 rice cooker， 所以是说在驾驶座旁边有这个电锅。So those are all fake, but the actual thing is that Range Rover does have a SUV that has a falconry cage in the back. 所以呢 falconry 是一个，我们为什么会讲到 falconry 呢？因为从这个中东到欧洲到中国，所以都会很多都有这个 falconry 的阿拉伯王子 ，yes， 阿拉伯王子 probably will get this, and they probably do because 这在中东真的是很流行然后记不记得我们上次讲到那匹马，1500万美金的那匹马，那也是中东的I think it's 卡达的 王子买的。Okay, so that's a different kind of luxury. And again, I use this to tell my husband how frugal I am and how lucky he is to have me as a wife, that I won't ask for a $15 million horse and I won't ask for an SUV that has a falconry cage in the backseat in the cage. So a cool thing about falcon is that the male and female falcons are just called falcon, okay? But the male falcon is called tercel. So this is a different thing. Not a lot of raptors are this, but this male falcon is called a tercel. So that's a tercel. And so that's, I don't know if you want to write it down, but that's a male falcon. And so a lot of people say that this is the reason why it's called a tercel. It's because it's 1/3 of the so usually the male falcon is 1/3 of the size of a female falcon. And my students will know that usually 99% of the time, raptors female is much larger than the male. 所以在这个猛禽类里面 ，raptors 猛禽类里面呢，母的都是比对 tercel 等于 male falcon very good. So 母的都是比公的大很多。So that's what they're called. Tercel is male falcon. Very good. And so the next animal that we want to talk about is gerfalcon. And I know I wrote this. I think Paul is having some problem getting on. He's been texting me. Paul, I see your messages. If you can just go onto Facebook and watch my video and then rotate your phone to like horizontal view. And when you get on, just give me a shout out and then I will invite you on my button. So don't worry. If you are on, just let me know and then I will invite you on here, okay? Because this is 因为没有办法 rehearse, 对不对? Because we are live video, so we can't rehearse. So I don't think we can't practice. 所以这个是如果他真的没有办法上的话，没有关系，我们就继续讲 ，okay? So the other falcon that we want to talk about is gerfalcon. 这个当然我中文一开始不知道怎么讲 ，right? Gerfalcon. So gerfalcon is the next raptor, the next falcon that we're going to talk about is the gerfalcon. 一开始的时候我不知道中文怎么讲，所以我就 Google how to say gerfalcon in Chinese. 然后呢，这个 Google 就告诉我是吉尔法克尔。And I was like, that's not it. I don't know how to say it in Chinese, but I just knew that's not it. 所以我就继续做 research. Alright, gerfalcon. And 结果呢，我发现它有一个，其实它有中文，而且不但有中文，它的历史其实很久远。是它的中文呢，我一定要写下来，因为实在是太好听了。中文刚刚在里面有讲是毛准 ，right？ 毛准所以呢，但是其实又有另外一个讲法，因为好，你们就可以看到我写中文。gerfalcon 的中文其实叫做海东青，海东青。So it's a very, very cool name, I think. And you will know this name. This has a lot of history behind it because 在乾隆雍正皇帝的时候 this is when I was hoping like Paul would come up because he loves Chinese culture, he likes history, and he likes different kinds of culture. But 如果还没有办法上来的话，没有关系 Paul, take your time, it's okay. And so let me see if Paul is up here. I still don't see Paul. I don't think you should invite me, Paul, because then I will be in your video. So you have to wait and watch this video so I can invite you. So that's how it works. But again, we can't rehearse this. So if you guys, you just have to know that Paul is waiting there and no idea how to get on. And just give him a second and let him figure it out. It should be fine. And so 海东青为什么说有这个 historical significance is because 在清朝乾隆雍正的时候呢，为什么说乾隆雍正？因为这个时候有一个他们刚上的时候也说要万国朝贡，所以他们叫世界各地的不同的大使都要，因为他是新皇帝 ，right? So the new emperor's in town. You gotta give me some gift to welcome me to like take my rightful place as an emperor. So one of the gift from another country. There he is. Bring to camera. Yes, I bring Paul to camera. Can't bring Paul on camera. Why is that? I don't know why we cannot bring Paul. We hope. Okay, so we hope that Paul is coming up soon. But so the Gyrfalcon is 所以海东青为什么会有这么优雅的名字？因为他们在
Hello.
Hi.
Oh, hi. Hi. Sorry, it took so long.
That's okay.
Good.
Like I said before, like it's really difficult to rehearse, right?
So, yeah.
Yeah. So Paul is going to talk to us in a little bit about his experience learning a different language, and so we'll let you introduce yourself in one little bit. I am in the middle of the Gyrfalcon story. 所以呢，这个有吗？ I think the frame just froze, but his Chinese is really good, so I know that he can understand this. 好，但是呢，这个所以有一个大使进贡的就是海东青 and then this one of the most famous painter you know in history. 然后这个 painter 我觉得大概是 connection 的问题Paul 不见了。OK， 所以呢，白海青的let's see， 白海青就是海东青的白的 morph， 所以我们等一下呢会给，我觉得现在太不稳了，所以我没有办法给小朋友你们看这个照片，但是我等一下都会放在 comment 里面，你们可以好好的欣赏。因为这个是谁画的呢？就是郎世宁画的。郎世宁你们知道是谁对不对？郎世宁，我很喜欢郎世宁，为什么？我觉得一定很多人都猜得到。So I really like 郎世宁 because he painted a lot of horses, right? 但是我们知道郎世宁是哪里人 ？Do we know where 郎世宁 is from？ 小朋友们猜一猜，大朋友们你们应该知道。所以我等一下会写郎世宁 and his actual name。郎世宁是从哪里来的 ？So, let me see if I can add Paul back on here. So, 郎世宁是
I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. That's okay. It's
哎呦。
意大利人 Yes, very good. Phoebe said 郎世宁是意大利人。Paul, 你知道郎世宁是谁吗？
是谁？不知道。
是谁？他是清朝时候的一个画家。And he was actually Italian.
Giuseppe. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
His name is Giuseppe Castiglione, right? So it's he was actually Italian, but he was on a missionary Paul，你对中国的历史有兴趣吗？
当然有兴趣啊。
当然有兴趣。
有啊。
Paul 的中文讲得非常非常的好。然后呢，这个是他在清朝的时候到中国去，他是从意大利要去中国传教，right? So he's in the missionary. 但是他刚到的时候，这个清朝的皇帝说不能传教 ，right？ 不能传教，就是要先就是我只是喜欢我中国的文化，所以其他的教不能传。所以郎世宁就说没关系，不能传教，没关系，我很会画画，可不可以让我留下来在你的宫廷里面？ So in your court， 宫廷是 court，So in your court let me just paint。我很会画画，所以郎世宁是中国的历史文化里面很重要的，把西方的画画的方法带进中国的一个人，然后而且他画很多很多马，所以我很喜欢。So 郎世宁的中文这个颠倒了郎世宁的中文他自己
郎世宁，
对，郎世宁，然后 Giuseppe Castiglione。OK， 好 ，So this is Paul， 你跟大家自我介绍一下。
好，今天很高兴能够参加这个影片。然后呢，我的中文名字叫滕保罗，不是奔腾的腾，就是植物的藤，那个藤。对，然后
日本語ですか？
日本語がちょっとできます。日本語。对，因为其实我第一位老师就是台湾人，然后他就是可能，因为我知道台湾就是被日本给影响到，所以他就是之所以就是弃了这个词，然后呢，我可以讲汉语跟日文，然后我的母语就是英文，我是在纽约州里土生土长的一个美国人。然后呢，我就是发现我对中国和日本，就是东方的一些国家，比较有强烈爱好，所以我就是对，我就是在比较年轻的时候开始学习那些语言，有普通话、日文，对，主要是这两种。然后现在的话，我已经15来年说汉语了，对，15 years。
我们怎么认识 ？How did we meet? Because you came into the math lab where I was teaching, right?
对，就是我们在 Schenectady 那个大学，因为我当时数学不好，我要一个 tutor， 对吧？然后对，当时你就帮助了我学习数学，对，是这样子。
Yeah, but you were talking to me in English at
first. Yeah.
And you found out that I could speak Chinese, right?
Yeah.
But you could already speak some Chinese back
then. Well, like back then, I was in the beginning stages. So I didn't know as much as I know now. Like now I know way more. 但是当时的时候我就是初级的学生，所以对I was just a beginner. Yeah.
Maggie 有说滕保罗吗？对，没有错，就是藤蔓的藤。
对，我喜欢这个词。不过保罗这个名字，我觉得就是你一听到你就知道他是西方人嘛，不太像中国的人的名字，所以还好 ，It's okay。
还要再慢慢想，就是你想要取像郎世宁这种名字吗？感觉就是中国人的名字吗？
就是对，比较Chinese style，you know，very 优雅的一个名字。
OK，
对。
好，我们再帮滕保罗想想看有没有什么优雅的中文的名字。
OK。
那你就是我们很多的观众都是想要学英文，但是他们没有在美国土生土长 ，right? So we have a lot of audience who want to learn English, but they are living in Taiwan. So how do you learn Chinese? Because you wanted to learn Chinese, but you were living in the United States. You're living in New York.
对
，So 你没有在这个讲中文的环境。
对。
你怎么学中文还有日文的？
我觉得这是个很好的问题。主要是你要就是经常练习，你可以找到一个方法嘛，就是说我喜欢看视频或者是movie， 或者是我喜欢读这本书。就是虽然你没有住在那个国家，你还是有机会可以就是学得到那些内容嘛。你就要找一些how do you say like resources 材料 or something like that resource。 资源，然后就是你可以每天或者是每2天或者是每一个星期，就是学习。然后我觉得另外一个重要的就是你要有一个 pen pal or 就是一个朋友，就是可能网上的一个朋友，就跟他练习一下。
一起练。
对对对，因为如果你有这种朋友的话，他就是你发错的话，他可以改你嘛。
对，
不像你哦，对对
对
对，不太像你在读书什么的，改不了你自己，对吧？你不知道你不知道你哪里错，对吧？所以就是有一个就是可以讲那个语言的朋友，也是一个很好的方法。对对对，而且就像我在上大学的时候，其实没有机会旅游去，就其他，有一个机会就是when I went studying abroad. But that was only was in Sichuan, and that was only for 5 months. That was it, just 5 months. So I didn't really have the opportunity, like some people do, to like go all over the place, which I think is great. 但是没有就是去外国的学生也可以经常就是练习学习，就是你要找那些资源，就帮助你把你的那个水平提高一点。
大家可以感觉得到，滕保罗先生的中文一开始是在中国的时候练的，因为他会说，right? So 水平 is a very like it's a telltale sign that you learn your Chinese.
Yeah, 我很认真。对对对。
所以有时候你会讲一些，我记得你有时候会讲一些，一下讲不起来，但是就是很北京腔的。
哦，真的，哎呦。
但是那。And I think it would be much easier for Taiwanese people to learn English because the English resources are everywhere, right? Like Hollywood movies and songs. Oh my goodness! 我记得我到德国住的时候，我也是想要像这样。那我有很多德国朋友会一直帮助我。我连在像后讲，我连在去上学的路上，我坐地铁去上学，对不对？Angela 说保罗先生中文水平很高。
谢谢你。
然后我在坐地铁去上课的时候呢，我连在地铁上写功课都会有好心的路过的德国人说这一题写错了这样子，所以
你被发现了。
It happens many times. Like I made many a mistake. 德文我觉得很难学，但是在德国的时候，我就想要我也想要学德文歌 ，right? So I want to German pop song that really helped me learn at English when I was still learning English. So every radio station I turned, they are playing Britney Spears.
Oh my God!
So it's so popular.
Wow.
And so to me, the songs that remind me of Germany is not like German songs.
Yeah, that's kind of funny though.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. Like the English songs are everywhere. So 很多大小朋友都会问说，要怎么样英文腔调才比较好？我觉得听英文歌，然后看很多 Disney 的卡通。
对，那个也很好嘛，因为我们有很多迪士尼的那个动画，对吧？对的，很好看的。
很好看的。
对。
刚刚的说 Delphine 的声音太远，对不起。
没关系，
这样不知道会不会好一点啊？所以 Disney 的动画很好看，
对，
他们的发音都很标准，
对，很标准，没有，对，
对，所以不会用很多的俚语like slang or but I think that's another thing that 就是很多大小朋友可能如果搬到美国来的话，like I think so I first came to the States when I was in high school, and so my American friends, I was exchange student, 我是交换学生。然后呢，我到 Phoenix, Arizona, 我到凤凰城是代表台北去当交换学生。然后这些高中的小朋友就问说 ，Delphine, do you want to hang out after school? And I was like, yep, but I don't know what that means. 我不知道 hang out
我没有想到 hang out 是俚语。Oh wow, that's interesting.
It's not really a 俚语, but it's just like a daily conversation thing that you don't learn.
It's informal. Informal.
Informal. So you want to hang out? Like, hang out 的意思我们写一下好了。那
Paul，你有没有一些中文的你之前不会讲想到的，但是在譬如说台湾人都会讲的一些词，但是你英文不知道是什么的？
可能就说人家吧，因为就是学普通话的时候，里没有这个，可是人家 is like 其他人 ，it's like other person， right？
人家
We and like 大陆的人不会用这个词，好像不会用这个词，就人家，因为我知道台湾人习惯用这个词，对吧
？Yeah， 人家对台湾人会用人家
对
，so I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
Other cool thing.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
人家 But this is the term that got me when I was in high school.
Hang out.
I have no idea what this means.
Yeah, it's very informal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So hang out 是Paul 帮我们解释一下 hang out 是什么意思
？hang out 就像是交往的意思，就是你想出去玩、吃个饭什么的。hang out 就是你不会跟你的老师讲的话，因为it's informal。OK， 所以就是你可以跟你的朋友说let's go hang out. Do you want to hang out Saturday night? 就是比较快乐一个时间一起度过的，是这个样子。
对。但是 Paul， 你刚刚说交往
不太对吗？
不太。
OK。
交往的话，通常是男女朋友 ，like in a relationship.
I didn't know that. Nobody told me that. Okay, that's good to know.
Oh my gosh, how many relationships did you promise to
be? I don't know. 没有人告诉我为什么。
大家都问你要不要跟他们交往，你就说好吗？
哎呦 ，that's embarrassing.
哎呦，好，你回去你要 clear things up.
好。
Yeah, but 这个是我觉得我觉得一直很想要请 Paul 来上我们的视频 ，right? So live video, I really want you to come up because I think you give people living in Taiwan who want to learn English and who want to speak good English a great hope.
That's good.
I think you speak wonderful Chinese.
Thank you.
And 而且是所以我们大概认识10年了，差不多。
对呀，
对，所以我10年前认识你的时候，你的中文讲一点点，然后讲的很少。
对。
但是你现在的中文很流利，哇，会说不得了哎！I never really use these words， 我没有说过不得了，但是我觉得这样的中文会这样说，我觉得不得了 ，right？Yeah， so 就是要很大もう日本語もいいですね。
ちょっと日本語ができる。でもね、日本語が難しいので、ちょっとit's hard. The Japanese is hard because like I haven't practiced it as much as Chinese. だからwhen I use it, I really have to think. I really have to think, you know, ちょっと難しいですね、日本語。
そうですね。もうどこの勉強しますか？
大学時代に私の専門は中国語と日本語でした。だから2年間 maybe 2 years 2年間大学で勉強していた。でも以前はhow do I say it? 家庭教師personal or like tutor がいました。でも日本に对でも日本に行ったことがないんです。I haven't been to Japan. So yeah, そう。
日本は本当です素晴らしいです。
はい素晴らしい文化があります。
はいそうですね。
大好きです。Yeah. So you can tell I really have to think, but it's okay, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely amazing. I have to think a lot too. Well, I used to speak it with my grandparents, and after they passed away, I didn't
that's cool.
Anyone to practice anymore, so I forgot a lot. And then when I went to Japan, like a few, probably 10 years ago, I would say. And I just like everything was like, okay, I have to speak it. I have to speak it. But I also forgot a lot.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of similarity.
There is, yeah. So you're actually part Japanese then?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's interesting.
私のおばあちゃんは日本人です。
面白い。
山梨の人です。山梨。
That's really interesting.
Yeah. So I really like we grew up learning a lot about Japanese culture and we watch a lot of Japanese drama.
Yeah.
My sister always made fun of me. She said I'm not a real Japanese anymore because I throw up once after I ate like 2 bowls of ramen noodles. I saw that you were teaching how to say
yeah. 对对 yeah.
and she was making fun of me. And for our Taiwanese audience, so this is we all don't know 拉面 right?
拉面对对。
对，台湾人都知道拉面。你要不要跟大家讲一下美国人怎么讲拉面这个字？
我们美国人就是说we say there's kind of 2 ways we say it. We say ramen, and then some people say ramen, which is kind of strange.
Oh my goodness, that's even worse.
Some people say ramen, which is awful. But it's best if you just say ramen. So like, in 就是中文的拉 it's like la, but in 英语 it's English it's ra. It's kind of like your teeth. Ra.
They spell it with an R.
Yeah, but we use our teeth when we pronounce it. It's ramen. So it still sounds very 还是很像的, but it's just a little bit different in the R pronunciation. Yeah.
So just don't say ramen.
Oh no, don't say that. I mean that's like but I've heard some people say ramen noodles, so we butcher things terribly sometimes.
这个美国不是只有在讲去拉面店吃的拉面叫拉面，美国人也会用泡面。
泡面。
对我知道中国是讲方便面是吗？
方便面 that's like instant noodles.
Yeah.
Instant
noodles.
But
you also call instant noodle
ramen. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. 对，所以美国的泡面也是他们是用这个拉面这个字来讲，因为是一开始的时候是从日本进来的，所以他们叫ramen. Yeah, so it's ramen but I mean I guess Americans can call it ramen, but just don't say ramen.
Yeah, don't say ramen, please.
Yeah.
泡面的英语是什么？泡面的英语？
泡面 instant noodles 吗？
Oh, it's just instant noodles. I wasn't sure. Oh, okay.
你没有听过泡面吗？
没有，其实没有。
对，我觉得因为我觉得泡面好像在中国不常用，是在台湾的时候是讲泡面。
OK。对
OK 好那你有没有什么问题要问我们的呢？我们都是native English
Chinese speakers 可能现在
慢慢的
对
如果说有人想要跟 Paul 当做 pen pal 的话
对可以啊你可以加我的微信
我们没有用微信
不用吗OK
等一下微信是 WeChat 吗
Yeah, WeChat.
Yeah, 我们没有用 WeChat. I don't know. At least I don't use it. I think most of Taiwanese people use Line, right? 我们用 Line.
Line. I don't know if I have Line. I don't think I do.
So.
Yeah, okay. We'll find something.
We'll find something.
Yeah.
But this is Paul, and thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much, Delphine.
Our video. And sorry about the kerfuffle.
That's okay. That's okay. 非常感谢你。
Thank you. 谢谢 Paul 今天来上我们的节目，跟我们讲一下说他是怎么学中文的，然后我们可以用什么方法来学英文。对，谢谢 Paul， 然后我们下礼拜2再跟大家见。然后呢，我们会So I will put pictures of different kinds of things in the comment later. So like 郎世宁的画啦，然后还有其他的照片啦，我会把它放在这个Oh shoot, we said we're going to talk about the effect of global warming. We were too excited talking about culture. But maybe we will talk about it next time. But I will put that in the comment. 大小朋友们请你们一定要看这个 comments, okay? So we'll talk about the effect of global climate change and global warming on birds and also other animals in the comments. And I think a lot of Americans are still not so certain about if global warming is happening. 不是很了解全球气候变迁的问题，因为美国人不是首当其冲。首当其冲是一个成语，Paul 就是不是 most of the Americans don't have the first-hand impact on their lives, right? But like a lot of people and a lot of animals in the Arctic area and a lot of people like in Taiwan, we were experiencing like 100 years, like record heat almost every other day. But
oh my God.
So yeah, so this is very, very something that we can talk about next time.
That sounds fun.
Okay, thank you so much,
Thanks,
everyone.
Daphine.
Thank you. And we'll talk to you next time. Okay, we'll see you next week, guys. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
再见。